2022 has been a very busy year for not only gacha games, but the entire gaming industry. And thanks to gamesindustry.biz, we have a complete breakdown of total earnings across console, mobile, PC platforms, the biggest game releases of the year, the most talked about games and companies, most downloaded and highest grossing games across the globe, and more. And you are going to be surprised. Before we delve into all that though, I want to take a moment to thank every one of our patrons for making 2022 a better year for me. I hope we all find the game we have been craving in the new year. Also, if you have a moment, consider joining my Discord. I have a link to that in the comments below. 2022 has been an incredible year in terms of revenue for video games. As a matter of fact, the last few years have seen a large incremental increase in total revenue, mostly targeted towards mobile games and mobile apps. This is, of course, due to the fact that we have been secluded from society due to a certain virus spread. Well, secluded even more than usual. As gamers, we rarely go outside as is. The market has been split pretty evenly amongst console and PC revenue, with consoles bringing in $51.9 billion, a decrease of 4% year over year, and PC games, both physical and digital copies, totaling $38.9 billion, an increase of 1.8% year over year. Mobile games make up 50% of total revenue across all platforms, with $92.2 billion, a 6% decrease year over year, and browser games made up 1% of total revenue at $2.3 billion, a 16.7% decrease year over year. Imagine all the husbandos and waifus that you could roll for and max out with $92.2 billion. Admittedly, still not enough to max out every Genshin Impact husbando and waifu. The gaming industry has seen a monolithic shift in recent years, from a time where box copies were the dominant sales figure to 2022, where physical copies of video games account for 5.8% of total market revenue. Physical sales saw a 10.1% decline in total revenue for 2022, with PC games suffering a 4% decline. Nevertheless, physical sales accounted for 2% of all PC copies sold, with a better margin for consoles at 28%. Next, we'll see a breakdown of the best-selling boxed games of the year, split between the UK, Japan, and the US. It's no surprise Modern Warfare, Horizon, Forbidden West, God of War, Ragnarok, and Elden Ring were featured in the top 10, but Lego Star Wars, Nintendo Switch Sports, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and Legends actually outselling Scarlet and Violet? Wow. Japan shows a very different market. Splatoon instead of FIFA, Scarlet and Violet outselling Legends. Did Kirby get a new game? Huh. Oh, and there's Minecraft. Apparently that's been a huge financial success in Japan this year. The US really didn't show much support for FIFA, seeing Madden NFL in the number 3 spot, and in contrast to the UK, seem to have quite the obsession with Elden Ring. Apparently the US and the UK have different preferences with regards to Forbidden West and Ragnarok. It also seems like only Japan seems to prefer Scarlet and Violet to Legends. Metacritic's highest rated game of 2022 was Elden Ring, where their lowest rated was Postal 4, No Regrets. Wait, is that a typo, or is that legitimately the game's name? An IP, or rather intellectual property, pertains to a trademark that a rights holder owns. For example, the Final Fantasy franchise, Zelda, Fire Emblem. With this knowledge, it is very evident that instead of creating new franchises, the majority of non-Chinese companies opted to release new games in already established franchises, as opposed to entirely new intellectual properties, with Xbox, Take-Two, and Ubisoft attempting to launch new IPs, and the rest falling back on franchises they already know perform adequately. Don't fix what ain't broke, right? But in doing so, you're also potentially stifling innovation. The mobile market is arguably the most lucrative market in the entire gaming industry, and is heavily dominated by certain games, certain regions, and certain companies within those regions. Azure Interactive Games, Embracer Group, and Supersonic Studios all managed a cumulative total of 1.1 billion downloads, with Say Games and Miniclip coming in with 935 million and 931 million downloads respectively. In terms of total gross income, Tencent, shocker, brought in a whopping $6.8 billion Activision Blizzard managed $2.5 billion, despite all of its drama and games underperforming. Thanks Diablo Immortal. NetEase saw $2.6 billion. Playrix and Take-Two Interactive both saw $2 billion. As is evident, China absolutely dominated earnings, and that is even more apparent given Microsoft and Sony have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into gacha game companies attempting to come up with the next Genshin Impact. I actually have a dedicated video going over this if you're interested. Top games by downloads is interestingly not dominated by Genshin Impact. Instead, Genshin isn't even in the top 5. Subway Surfers, Garena Free Fire, Stumble Guys, Ludo King, and Roblox come in with 275 million, 245 million, 174 million, 165 million, and 163 million players respectively. That is over the course of the entire year. And while Genshin didn't manage to make it into the top games by worldwide downloads, it did make it into the top games by worldwide spending. Damn waifus, man. Honor of Kings pulled in an absolutely crazy $2.5 billion. PubG Mobile managed $1.9 billion. Genshin made $1.7 billion and is admittedly the only gacha game here. Candy Crush Saga saw $1.2 billion and Roblox managed $1 billion. Do you ever get the feeling like you're in the wrong industry? Top countries by worldwide download sees India leading with 8.9 billion, the US with 4.4 billion, which given India has 4 times US's total population, means on average US gamers download and play significantly more games than Indian players do. Brazil has 4.2 billion, Indonesia with 3.2 billion, and Russia with 2.4 billion. Probably due to Yuri and Yaoi gacha games. Wait, hold on, where is China here? That should have easily been number 1, right? Okay, well, you know, maybe, I guess they didn't disclose concrete numbers. Top countries by worldwide spending did actually see the US in the lead. And you all complain about not being able to afford waifus in your gacha games. Dude, come on. $20.8 billion, man. Jesus. Japan saw $14.2 billion, which is actually quite admirable since Japan's total population is 1/3 the size of the US. China has reported $13.4 billion, but is likely very underreported. South Korea has 5.2 billion, even despite an exorbitant number of mobile games coming out of it, and Taiwan at 2.3 billion. Honestly, kind of surprising. Hey, guys in the UK, do you not really like or play gacha games? The most covered games saw Elden Ring at number 1, Fortnite at number 2, Genshin Impact somehow at number 3 as opposed to number 1. I guess this isn't based off of social media presence or activity because Genshin's community are some of the most vocal of any gaming community online. Honestly, this is mostly what I would have expected with the exception of the inclusion of FIFA 23 and Destiny 2. The most covered companies saw Nintendo at number 1, and admittedly a whole slew of other gaming companies listed with Twitch at number 6. And it's not there because of how good a year it's had. Quite the contrary. Twitch made a lot of mistakes this year, and it'll be interesting to see how or where it goes from here. The most viewed game trailer saw competitive PvP games completely and utterly dominate the bracket. League, COD, Fortnite, Poppy Playtime. Isn't that the name of that dress-up game? Okay, above we saw the most covered games. This was apparently coverage by press. Now we have the most discussed games on Twitter, which means Genshin Impact is the uncontested king. It's interesting seeing Final Fantasy XIV is the second most talked about game on the entire platform though. Elden Ring makes sense at number 3 and the majority of the other games do as well. It's also surprising no other gacha games are listed, no Azure Lane, no Tower of Fantasy, not even Diablo Immortal, which was arguably one of the biggest releases this year, a horrible one, but largely discussed. The top YouTube influencers, I'm assuming by gaming category? Dude, holy, imagine releasing 341 videos and averaging 1.5 billion views. My God, how is that even possible? Oh, right, yeah, quality content, ha ha ha, yeah, I'm screwed. Then finally we see the video games with the most retail placements. These are, according to Games Industry, the video games with the highest number of retailed placements over 3-week launch periods, and include a whole lot of sports-related titles. and Sanic. This has honestly been a great insight into the minds of gamers this year. And admittedly, some of these numbers and subsequently these titles kinda caught me off guard. As the future becomes more mobile and by association digital friendly, this infographic will no doubt continue to see a sharp incline in specific areas. Gross mobile gaming revenue, digital sales and downloads, China being in direct control of every developer and publisher. Oh, whoops, did I say that out loud? I'm curious to see where the market will go from here, but I'm glad to be a part of its shift, regardless of what happens. Now, if you're looking for 2 other good watches, I got you covered with 2 videos on screen right now. One featuring how China has become the leading gacha developer around the world, and the other featuring a list of gacha games that are coming out this month in the month of January 2023. Don't miss out.